Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Captain America Sentinel of Liberty Issue 3. Yeah. Nice cover too, by the way, showing Steve fighting, for lack of a better term, the redacted dude, because he says redacted a lot. But I really enjoyed this issue, showing how Steve kind of figures out and handles the situation he's got to deal with the redacted opponent that he's got, and kind of digging into how he keeps fighting, at least from this creative team's perspective. It was an interesting one. It still jives up with Steve's other characterizations as well. It's just a different kind of view on it. And I do also like that we get a lot of stuff with Bucky and Peggy. Well, not a lot of stuff, but it is being handled well enough that you're like, okay, you got Steve doing his stuff in the Forge and getting information on that. And that is an info dump, but it's done in a pretty kind of cool way. But Bucky and Peggy's kind of thing was definitely an interesting one, which is where we pretty much open up at. As Bucky pretty much is calling her out on all these moves that she has made throughout the years and how they have had consequences that created very different kind of effects going on. And we then also see a thing as the machine deploys Starpoint Designate Redacted to go after Steve for like the fourth move. And his biggest kind of tell for thinking that Peggy is being unintentionally used by the Outer Circle is when the Power Elite was brought down and then 100% of the resources have been secured by shell companies. All of it, it didn't go away. It was just consolidated. That's a kind of pretty big thing. And of course, she later on in the issue is like, you've been utilized for these kind of things a lot more than me, so how dare you kind of call me on that. Then we see Steve seeing, by order of the Outer Circle, he has been deemed to be redacted by the redacted dude, and that's where it starts off with our fight. And he's talking about how the metal that the redacted, we're going to call person, because we learn later on that it's not just a robot, that it scrapes across the shield like nails on a chalkboard, and he's thinking his first thoughts of Logan, so it's like adamantium, vibranium, or something just as strong. And of course he's kind of exhausted, and he's thinking about when he hears the boys from the 12th front, the 12th standing tall along the western front, and them having to fight all that kind of stuff. They'd survived the winter there. He can survive this, as we then see him doing some cool ass maneuvers and busts open a pipe that actually blasts lava on the dude. He's like, huh, okay. And here's the big thing. Steve's like, they're still with me. All of his people, let's see, PFC Bowman, Corporal York, Bucky, Namor, Jim, all those people help give him the strength to continue and carry on. And then we see that lava kind of fucked up the redacted, as you can see his speech bubbles, his or hers, we don't know who this is, are kind of like going through, and it's kind of like messed up. And he's like, okay, that's lava, that's not wind power, this isn't like some green miracle thing, it's another lie, one that they didn't want him to see. So he's just going to keep going in and seeing what's kind of going on. And then we see Steve pretty much giving us a small kind of story as he's kind of like going through the building, trying to figure some stuff out, talking about how the day King T'Chaka passed along the vibranium that would become his shield. He offered two pieces of wisdom. One, that the metal is his protector and to respect it, and then the second is the metal is your teacher and listen to it. It's like, huh, that's kind of cool, as he then uses the shield to kind of like figure out what's kind of going on, kind of like an echolocation kind of thing. And he knows that the redacted thinks that he's got him in a trap, but he can hear the like power, and his teacher, he can't hear it, but his teacher can, and he smashes the shield down to like unleash that kind of power, and uses it to pretty much like stun the redacted. And you of course see in this cool artwork here that there's a person inside of it, and then they get like teleported out. He's like, oh, okay, it's a person. Let's see what they were so desperate to protect. As we then see Steve go in similarly in a panel, in a page laid out similar panel wise to where we saw the Forge last. So that was a kind of cool thing. And he's like, okay, they wanted what was buried beneath. And let's see here. And he's talking about how it's an honest to God volcano layer, and that Bucky's gonna be kind of like mad that he missed it. And then talking about how a volcano place would be kind of dangerous, even though it doesn't look it. And then he sees a place where the shield was made, and as he puts it down, we see a kind of laser kind of thing go on it and pretty much tell us the history of the person who made it as he's ordered to do it. And this is really cool because you rotate the whole thing to read it, and I really like when comics do those kind of things. Now, granted, it needs to be used sparingly, so that way it doesn't completely and utterly ruin the flow or make it like, I don't know how to read this thing. But this was a kind of cool one because, again, it's a shield, it's circular, and you keep going, and he's talking about how he's either dead or he will have successfully disappeared, and he completed his mission. Let's see. Talking about that, like, it's here that your promised shield has been created, except it's not run by the United States, it's run by the Outer Circle, and that the world is their game. Let's see here. The symbols, the three rings around a star. Outer Circle controls the two inners, and of course the star is their weapon, their super soldier. Let's see. And then of course, like, they've brought in that permanently into the light. Steve was kind of being their star, and he wants to make sure that Steve doesn't accept that role willingly. And that he would just do it as he would do it. And that they've orchestrated this war. Let's see. Humankind has lived under their shadow for years. Let's see. And he's like hoping that he thinks he's the man he thinks he is. And that the kind of man who fights for freedom, for the world, for people, for himself most of all. Take this shield, it's not theirs anymore, it's all yours. And that's a big kind of thing. I know they're hammering that on about whose symbol and whose symbol this is. And that's a definitely interesting kind of question, and I do like that that's the big kind of driving question here, because Steve does stuff in his own way. And then we see who we think, who pretty much goes by the designation, the Machine, being like, yeah, nearly a century later, and you still don't know your place. And she's like, I don't know you an explanation, and I know you didn't come here for the power. You wanted me to keep me from hearing the message, and you failed. It's like, indeed. Fortunately, a better move has presented itself, as she pretty much starts blowing it up. And she was like, my son was an excellent judge of character. It got him killed as well. And then she's like, I can rebuild the power plant as everything's pretty much exploding. And then Steve kind of surfs away on his shield in the lava as he then gets down. And it's like, he's kind of banged up, kind of John McClane style, but he's all right. Let's see here. And then we end with them, pretty much Bucky and Peggy kind of sniping at each other about who's pretty much being rational about this whole thing. And they pretty much got, like, a lot of the rest of the people out of the room since they're doing their whole kind of stare down. And she's, of course, pissed off that he's calling her a liar, a puppet, and a secret fascist. And then they pretty much start fighting each other. And this is a pretty good fight. I mean, it depends upon... I don't know exactly the kind of differences in power set. Bucky's got certain kind of augmentations and everything, but Peggy probably has different kind of things as well. And the thing is, she kind of starts going ham on him, saying that, like, he's guilty, he's done terrible things, been friended for a long time, that it wasn't you, but it was Soldat, and I'm not going to be dragged into your tragedy. It's like, wow, she's going ham on that kind of stuff. As we then see them utilizing all the stuff around to do real drag-out fighting, and of course, Bucky's not trying to, like, take her down, he's trying to get her to stand down, so I think that puts him at a kind of disadvantage where Peggy's like, screw you. And then she pretty much like, if I was on the take, you'd be dead right now. Don't look for me. Wipe me from your imagination. You'll never see me again. As we then go to where Steve has been hanging out with the boxing, as we see the kid is in danger, as the redacted is pretty much there to redact Steve. It's like, shit, Steve needs to get back and save that kid. So I do like what they did here. I do like that they keep having us check in with Bucky and him doing his own kind of investigation and it not interfering with Steve's main overall narrative, but another kind of narrative that will interweave with it. That is a hard thing to do because sometimes you're just like, I'm not that interested in it, or I'm more interested in one story or another. In my case, I'm interested in both and think that they're devoting enough time for both. If you don't agree, that's cool. Like, if you want to rather see the stuff with Bucky or have it just focus solely on Steve, that's valid as well. I just think that they're handling it pretty well because I'm like, ooh, I'm thinking that this is working out pretty well. I do like how they did the whole stuff with giving us more information on the shield and how it ties to the outer circle and us getting kind of more breadcrumbs on what's going on with the redacted and how Steve was able to kind of fight them and how he's going to have to make sure that he learns from this fight to more accurate, have a better success rate at taking down this redacted kind of enemy because he's not going to have lava all the time or access to kind of crazy ass energy to stun it. But that's Steve. He knows how to tactically handle situations even when he's on the back foot. So I'm interested to see how that's going to change up and what the outer circle is going to do to this kid. It's like, oh god, that's not good. So we'll have to see how that kind of goes down, what Peggy being in the wild is going to mean, and if she is with the outer circle willingly or unwillingly, and how that's going to affect the outer circle's plans going forward. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.